Yeah, thank you very much. My story will be slightly different from the story that we've heard. So just two stories we've heard so far. I will focus a little bit more on our role as yeah, I sometimes call it scholars in the universities and as teachers in other institutions, and how we need to adapt ourselves to all these new technologies that invade education, let's say, or could invade education all over Europe. As a starting point, let's see how this works here. Yeah. What we could think of is, okay, as teachers, as instructors, as educators, we have to adapt to the fact that the audience we have in front of us, that they are more tech savvy than we used to be when we were students. It doesn't mean, like in this cartoon here, that they are fully digitized or that they are only looking at technology. But the picture is clear, I think. As an educator, we come in a room, in a classroom where the students have changed a lot due to all the technology that has invaded their lives. So the world in which our students are living nowadays is in which they are working sometimes, in which they are learning, has been invaded by the technology, and they bring that into the classroom. Does that mean that we as a teacher, the opposite way is that we as a teacher adapt ourselves to all the technology, and we have to transform ourselves in a more tech-savvy person in addressing the students in a way that we used to do in the past, so to say. So there is these two, let's say, ends of the spectrum in which we have to adapt ourselves and look where could we be on that spectrum. As I said, the students have changed, and so there are different characteristics that we could bring in here. Our students expect that what they are experiencing in their own daily lives, that they could experience that also in the way that they are learning in for instance, classroom settings, and in the pandemic also in an online environments. They really want to see sort of seamless transition from one environment, their living, working environment to a learning environment. And I'm not telling a secret here, but the characteristics of our students, many studies have been done on that, and I know that there is criticism on in subdividing groups of students in different generations. But currently, we could describe the generation of students in our institutions as Generation Z, which is sort of born with technology. These are students that never have experienced the world without internet, without Wi-Fi, without smartphones. Well, maybe without smartphones, but especially the next generation, which is called Generation Alpha, by the way, they can't imagine a world without these small devices in their hands. So the purpose of or let's say the objective of what we as teachers, as educators need to do to flourish in this world of technology is also to at least to know what these students are used to and what they are using actually. And it's not just the students themselves that are trying to transform, let's say, our behavior as educators. Also, the labor market is expecting from our students that they feel comfortable in that new world where everything is connected, where there is a lot of media involved, of all kinds of media. And so students need to feel more comfortable in that new world, let's say, and they do have already some skills and they are using certain technologies, but they sometimes forget that they can also use these technologies for the benefit of their learning and maybe also for the benefit of working later on. While at the other hand, the labor market is expecting that when our students graduate, that they are fully competent in that new world. So our role as scholars, as academia, as teachers, is to adapt, I think, to what our students are demanding at the one hand, because they live in that world of technology, and at the same time also to try to prepare them better for the world that is outside academia, waiting for them when they graduate. And so some models and frameworks do exist, and time is too short to elaborate on all of them here in full detail, but I will go quickly through them. One of these models is as teachers, we could stick to the TPAC model. TPAC model stands for technology, pedagogy, and contents knowledge. So where in the past we could think about, okay, as an academia, as a professor, it's sufficient that I know all the knowledge in my own domain, my research domain, my specialism. Okay, when more and more there is emphasis that it's not just a researcher, we are not just researchers in the university, we also have to educate people. We more and more there is emphasis on the teaching aspect as well. So we need to know the pedagogical models, how to bring the contents to the students in a proper way. Yeah, it's clear that, for instance, for biology, you could do some field work, and for history, you need to do other things. They live more in libraries, for instance. So there is typical pedagogical knowledge that you have to possess as a teacher, let's say. But nowadays, with all this EdTech available, there is a third component that becomes more and more important. We also need to know about the technology that could help us to bring the knowledge of our content, of the contents, let's say, the knowledge in our domain, to the students in a proper didactic way with the technology that could help here. And it's clear that, again, with my story of biology and history, that the tools in biology are different than the tools you need, the technologies that you need to use in history. And as a professor, as an educator, you need to know, well, how you could combine these three types of competences, knowledges in the best optimal way to help the students to get the richest learning experience, so to say. So technology is there an important component in this picture. Other models that you could find, for instance, JISC in the UK, they talk about digital capabilities for teachers, and then it's about certain literacies on the use of information and data and media in general. It also talks about you creating learning materials, maybe tools, maybe apps to innovate education. So you need to have or to possess the skills as a teacher maybe select material, but in a certain way also to adapt material or create new materials. That's an important aspect of our lives as life as a teacher nowadays. And a third component there is that you also need to use the tools to communicate with students, to collaborate, maybe to co-create with students new opportunities, new learning materials, new apps, new tools that could help them to enrich their learning experience. So being able to use the tools to connect with the students is a very important new skill that we have to attain. And then the fourth component is about a more general strategic thinking on digital learning and development. Where is all this heading to? Why do I need to do this? And how can I help the students to go through this whole new journey with all these EdTech tools and technologies? And not to forget, which is an important one, that is the fifth one here in the outer blue circle, is also think about your digital identity and well-being. I think especially now in the pandemic, when we had to go to an abrupt switch to online education, it was very important to see how we could respect, for instance, things like privacy and how we could also accommodate students so that they could still feel happy in this new world, let's say, new online learning environment. I think that this is a very nice way of bringing things together that reflect on how you need to behave as a teacher in that new world where all these EdTech opportunities are available. European Commission also has developed a digital competence framework where, again, in the middle of the picture, you see that the main focus is indeed still on how you bring your contents in the most proper way using technologies to the students. But at the same time, you also need to work on your own professional competences and how you need to behave as a teacher in that new world, let's say. And at the other hand, you also have to help the students to become more proficient in that new world and helping them with developing their digital competences. I think this is a very nice picture bringing together the different aspects of educators in the new EdTech world, let's say. Another framework is one that I developed or work with when we do this kind of trainings together with my colleagues from Stellenbosch University. And there we talk about the digital scholar framework. There are three dimensions in this framework that could help you to think about your new role, let's say, in that new world we are living in nowadays. And at the outer part of the picture, you see the typical academic, let's say, duties and responsibilities you have. It's about teaching, it's about researching, it's also about community service, service to the broader society. And these are characteristics that we all know of and that we, I think we as educators, as teachers are working on these three pillars of academic work, let's say. But there are two more dimensions in the picture. And let me start with the blue circles. And there you see in the middle of the picture, it all starts with yourself. It's you as a teacher, you have the responsibility to bring your contents to your students. You need to know how to include technology or how to use technology to support your teaching and also the learning experience of the students. So there is a lot to tell about yourself, your own position in that field. But you're not working alone, and it has been mentioned already today. You could co-create with other teachers, even with students. So you're part of a larger team that could be your department, that could be your faculty, and so on. And that belongs to an institution. So there is also a vision of the institution necessary. Where are we heading to in this new world? Are we going for a fully online learning experience? Is it more blended? Is it high flex? What is another hype nowadays? So there is more vision needed by the institution as well. And your institution is not alone, it's not an ivory tower. So especially with the new technologies nowadays, we need to play a role in the broader society. The regional context, the national context is becoming more and more important. And that has also been already told by Maria, for instance, in her talk. You need to contextualize what you're doing. You need to make links with what is happening in your own close environment, the society in which we are living. And nowadays, and that's also thanks to technology, that there is the global dimension that we could not deny neither. And so, and that was also one of Blair's suggestions. Is it more localized or is it more globalized? I think that you need to balance certain things, and depending on what you're doing, you could move around on one of those blue circles. If it's about your own personal course, probably you're more in the center of these blue circles. But if you need to train people all over the world, which I'm sometimes doing, then you need to think of the outer circles here as well, and how you need to connect with these circles. So as an educator, you could move around on these blue circles when for specific things that you're doing as a teacher, for instance. And then the third I mentioned in this picture is going from author over storyteller, creator, integrator to networker. Again, these are different roles that you could play as a teacher and supported by technology. Author means that that's something that we are used to as researchers. We are publishing our articles. We are putting our thoughts on paper, and that is what we are good at. Otherwise, we would not get an appointment in the university. But nowadays, that's not sufficient. We also need to become more storytellers, and that means that we need to bring our message to the bigger society, let's say. It's not sufficient to publish your paper and then let it disappear in the library. We need to bring our message to a larger public, and that could be in different ways. Probably a paper is then not the most appropriate way to tell your story. A bit more advanced could be that you could also, for instance, nowadays it's a hype, that you could bring podcasts, that you are using audio to bring your message, to tell your story to a larger public. And maybe audio is not sufficient, and then you become more a creator, where you're also thinking of new ways like video and other media that you could use to illustrate your message and to make it more appealing to a larger audience. At that moment, you're really making use of proper technologies to package your story to support your story in a more multimedia way. And packaging is then more the next role on the picture, which is integrator. You need to think about all these different media, all these different elements, all these different aspects of what you want to bring, and you need to integrate that in something which is coherent, that you could easily send to students. Maybe that they could also learn themselves in a more autonomous way than we are used to teach for the moment. So integrating is a new role, I think, that we need to play. And then the ultimate role here is networker, which means that, okay, it's not just me and my learning material and my students, but I'm also disseminating my knowledge to a larger public. And maybe then you need to use not just the media, but also social media or other collaborative tools or communication tools. So the idea of this framework is that there is these three different layers with three different roles that you could play as a teacher, as an educator, and that could help you to think about, okay, where can I you make use and benefit from all the new potential technologies that could help me to enrich my teaching and learning, to enrich the learning experience of my students. And that's the message I would like to bring for today. I can still give you some advice as if you want to think about this role and what does it then mean? What can I do as a teacher? And one advice is be agile. Just to illustrate the point, when we think about instructional design, developing courses or curricula, we think very linearly, and the ADDIE model is a very well-known instructional design model, starting from analysis over design, developing, implementing, evaluation, and then enter the cycle again in an iterative way. That's maybe not the way we need to do it nowadays. That's not what our students are expecting in the world that they are living in. The world in which we are living nowadays is much more agile. It started with agile methodologies in software engineering development, but we could also think about this in instructional design procedures. We need to do this or to become more flexible and go away from the linear thinking about, okay, I will first think about my course, then I will implement it, then I will evaluate it, and then I will rethink my course and so on. It could be a much more agile process where we could think about, okay, how can I interact with other teachers, with students, and so on. So a more agile methodology in thinking about our teaching is mandatory, I think. Watch the trends is another aspect or the advice that I think is important. And there is a lot of trends reports that I could recommend related to technology and where the EdTech sector is heading to, especially linked to what we are doing as instructors, as teachers. There is the EDUCAUSE Horizon report. They think about what are technology trends and how can these trends be implemented in education, what could be difficulties that we have to, barriers that we have to overcome. Are there any enablers that could help us to introduce these technologies in education? I think that this is an interesting report that I can warmly recommend you to read. There is another report that I also think is very important, and that is not starting from the technology, but starting from the pedagogy, from the educational aspects. And that is a publication that the Open University of the UK is producing every year. It's called Innovating Pedagogy, and they are thinking about, okay, what are the new innovative pedagogical didactical approaches that we need to think of that are now introduced and not just introduced, but that are taking over the old paradigms of teaching and learning. And how can technology then be supportive for these? So that's another resource. I also think that it's important to when it comes to teaching, that you engage in action research, that you think about what am I doing here in my course, what kind of innovation am I implementing, and is it effective and efficient? How can I measure the impact of the innovation? How can I measure the impact of using the combination of technology, pedagogical approach, and yeah, of course, the contents that you're teaching. So you need to think about how you could also research your own practice as a teacher. And then I think the ultimate goal is that you need to lead the change. If you really want to make a change in your institution, I do not think that it's wise. Well, we know these curves here that you are at the right hand. Oh, sorry, yeah, at the right hand of the lower curve, indicating where people are with their feelings about introducing new technologies. You need to be more, at least in the middle of this curve. And if you really want to innovate education, you need to be at the left-hand side of the picture, and trying to whenever new technologies come into the picture, maybe you need, it's not, my message is not that you need to jump on the wagon immediately, but that you should not wait until others have tried it. And I think if you really want to become a digital scholar, so to say, it's important to be more at the left-hand side of these curves. Okay, this is another metaphor, but time is running, so I will skip this. My conclusion is, if you want to, to be at the front of what's happening in the edtech world, and play your role as an academic, as a professor or as an educator, there is only one way to go, and that is go digital. Okay, I've put here a lot of active verbs, so to say, that could help you think about how you could behave in that new world with all these edtech possibilities. And I will leave it here. I think, oh yeah, maybe just some promotion at the end. I already mentioned that I'm working with my colleagues from Stellenbosch University, and we will publish some of the ideas that I introduced today in a book, which will be launched in the fall, next fall, and the title will be Evolving as a Digital Scholar. It will be an open access book, so it will be freely available.